Okay, well, very welcome to the Rotary Club of New York 10th Youth Empowerment Session. Today is June 30th, 2021. We're just about at the end of our Rotary year. And I see that President Gerard has been able to join the meeting now, so I pass the initial remarks over to him. I welcome everybody from my side. I'm Andreas Rungac, the Executive Director of the club. Here's President Gerard Triffin.
Thank you, Andreas. I appreciate that very much. Can everyone hear me? I'm not muted. I hope. All right, thank you. Well, welcome everyone this is the last meeting of this Rotary year, June 30th. It's been quite a year, and I really want to be very grateful for all of our members who have contributed greatly and have done a lot to make this year very special and successful for us, especially Belor, who's chair of our membership committee, who arranged for our participants tonight. And we hope that you enjoy the presentation. It's very, very timely and very important for us. At the end of the meeting, I'll say a few other words, but I'm going to pass it on to Belor, to Murchidor, who will carry on and get our host, moderator, I should say. Belor?
Thank you so much, President Gerard, and good evening, dear Rotarians and our guests and distinguished speakers and moderators. And I'm very pleased to have these polymaths tonight, Ross Guttler, Murray Hidri, and Ramazan Nanayo. And we're gonna discuss about the future of spaces and with Ross, and then we're gonna enjoy the mind travel with us, and we will discuss about the music and mindfulness as well. So since we all have Ross, Murray, and Ramazan's bio, I'll make it very brief. So, and Ross is the CEO of the Open Center. It's the longest running urban holistic center in the country. And he considers that it's a personal mission to shift the way we view our offices and homes. Instead of using real estate as a delivery vehicle for positive health outcome and personal enlightenment. Ross is a member of the Urban Land Institute's Building Healthy Places Forum and also ULI's Real Estate Tech Innovation Council. He receives bachelor's in economics from Duke University and MBA from Duke University Fuqua School of Business. And also Ross is an avid reader, and you can see the stocks of books in his background, and we have same habit to buy more books. And welcome, Ross. Thank you so much for joining. And Murray is a multidisciplinary artist and tech pioneer. His purpose-driven approach is at the heart of his business success, acclaim as a visual artist, and global recognition as a musician. Ever pushing boundaries and guided by a strong desire to help people find their purpose. Murray is now focused on turning his immersive musical experience mind travel across the globe. And we are very lucky to have experienced mind travel tonight as well as. And over the past 5 years, Murray has created over 500 mind travel experience for over 100,000 people in the cities from Los Angeles to London, Paris and Pittsburgh, Berlin to Boulder and Venice, venues which such as Lincoln Center, the Theater of Ace Hotel and Metropolitan Museum of Art, Central Park, Grace Cathedral, and National Arts of Club. And these sessions would be moderated our dear friend Ramazan Nanayo from Global Shapers Global Shapers New York Hub. And he's a strategic creative director with over 10 years of experience. I apologize. 10 years of experience in enhancing brand awareness and driving social change. He's a founder of Beacon Revolt and Creative Impact Studio and develops slates of art projects dealing with cultural, socioeconomic, and environmental issues with the purpose of inspiring solutions. And he's also writer and producer and director of to Olympia, a drama about the three young athletes who faces cultural oppression. And Ramazan, besides his the involvement with the Global Shapers community, and he's also Next Generation Fellow and the part of the Unleash Innovation Lab, and as well as the Sandbox. So thank you so much and welcome, Ramazan, and our stage is yours.
Thank you, Balor, for such a kind introduction to all speakers and myself. I wanted to thank our guests for joining us for the 11th and last monthly youth empowerment session for the New York Rotary Club and any other guest who is joining us tonight. So I wanted to start off with our first guest and first topic, which would be the future of spaces. The last 18 months have been quite challenging for many of us. We went from spending a lot of time in our offices and coming back home to crash on our beds, couches sometimes when it was a very long day, and going back to the office to work and spend most of our hours there. And then during the whole pandemic, we were spending a lot of time at home. I had a great lunch with Ross yesterday, and we wanted to talk about how we could create spaces that give us value as opposed to take away from it. Ross, I'd love to ask you about the retail space and how it's built, and then how we're able to change that, approach, not only in offices, but also at home as well. How can we build the space that we spend most of our time, at least, in the last few months to a year, that it can add value to us as opposed to take away our attention, our spiritual, physical, and mental health.
Well, that's a hell of a question to kick this thing off. I want to say thank you to Balor, and thank you to the Rotary Club for having all of us. And I've probably gone to Rotary Club events for 20 years, maybe longer than that, and actually definitely longer than that. And I think what's cool is, Ramazan, you and I had lunch yesterday. We didn't know each other until this Balor brought us together for the Rotary Club. And we had lunch together, and it was such a inspirational and fun and educational lunch. And I thought that's sort of what the Rotary Club does. It brings together really great minds, helps develop relationships, and everybody leaves with connections and learning something. I was not paid by the Rotary Club to give this commercial, but I feel like us here together doing this is evident of like what the Rotary Club does. So I just want to say I appreciate Balor for bringing us together to do this. Ramazan, I think before I get to your question, I would say I just want to give people a little bit of background on why I may have the feelings that I have about the future of space, the way we use spaces. And I'll say I lived in Phoenix for 10 years, and I was in the real estate market. I was a developer building office and industrial buildings and working on apartment buildings also. And if you've ever lived in the Southwest, it's 115 degrees for several months of the year. And you just go from your office to your car to your grocery store back to your house, and you're only outside walking in between places of air conditioning. And I thought about after I was in real estate for 10 or 15 years, I got into what we call wellness real estate. And I was with one of the founding companies really that sort of founded this movement called Delos. And our thing was, how do we look at buildings and optimize them for occupant health? And the reason I wanted to talk about living in Phoenix is because we used to say at Delos, you spend 90% of your time indoors. Doesn't that make the indoors seem important? And I thought about it, and I actually added up how many minutes I spent indoors when I lived in Phoenix. And it was really not 90%, it was closer to 99% of my day was spent inside. And it's really wild to think about you spend 99%, like if you live in that type of area. So let's say it's somewhere between 90 and 99% of your time you spend indoors. Well, does anybody here think that the home builder or the office building developer or the mall builder, the people that develop malls, their goal is not to make you healthy. Their goal is not to make you happy. Their goal is not to make you smarter. Their goal is not to help you sleep better at night. Their goal is not to help you eat better. Their goal is to make money. And if you're in an office building, they're just trying to lease as much space as they can for the most amount of money. And they want people to generally be productive, but it's not their first priority. And if you're in an apartment building, you want to squeeze as many people in there as you can. So my last company, we really looked at this and we're like, what if the space's priority was us rather than just storing people? I think of real estate for a long time as just people storage. It's like a farm, just storing cattle. That's what our buildings do. And, you know, our bodies haven't evolved to be in artificial light and to have no natural airflow and no windows. You know, I mean, you can't see here, but like I have lights in my apartment that change color temperature with the day. They're different in the morning to help my body release cortisol and suppress melatonin, and they're different at night to have the opposite impact. And then in the middle of the day, they're different. And that's just one thing. You can see right next to me, I have an air filtration device that cleans all the air because New York, the air is okay. It's not great. So those are just two things. The point is, think of how wild it is to have the mindset of what if the spaces that we exist in, their top priority was making us healthier. And I just want everybody to like really sit with that. And you can even go in your house and you can look around and you could say, wow, what would I do differently? You know, would I make sure I use low VOC paints so that they don't off gas and poison the air in my house for 6 months after I use them? Would I pay attention to the type of mattress I buy that doesn't off gas and pollute my body sleeping on it for up to a year? You know, would I be careful opening windows when I cook certain things that give off things and pollute the air? And those are just a few examples. You know, I want to bring it back to your question around retail spaces. You and I talked for a while yesterday about the convergence of all real estate classes, how retail and apartments and offices, they're all starting to look like each other. You know, the retailers realized a few years ago, oh my God, people can buy on Amazon now. They don't need to come to the store anymore. How do I get them to come to my store? I'm paying all this money for rent. I need people buying in these stores. And what do? And I think, you know, Murray might have something to say about this. I think you would have something to say about this. They tried to make them experiential. They try to infuse other real estate classes into retail. What are the hotels doing now? They are adding yoga and meditation and things like that, bringing a spiritual aspect. You know, what are the office buildings doing? They're adding yoga and meditation, and they're adding hangout areas like you would have in a hotel. They have coffee shops now. You didn't used to have that in office buildings. So there's a convergence of all real estate that is only going to continue to where in 10 or 15 years, it's not going to be obvious. Am I in an office building or am I in an apartment building? I might not know until I start opening doors. But the first part of what I'm saying is whatever building that is, its primary purpose can and should be to make us healthier. There's a long answer to that.
Thank you. You know, the world is warming up, unfortunately, and it seems that we're going to be spending even more time indoors. So it does make sense to be very mindful of how we're building spaces and also how we're spending time within specific sections of rooms or buildings. As you were talking about all these experiences kind of coming together within one space, do you think we should be mindful of creating kind of divisions within spaces to make sure that one is particularly built to sleep in, where after COVID, our apartments have become our offices, the places where we rest, the places where we play with our families. It just became like a melting pot of all the things, and your brain is always trying to figure out like, all right, what time is it? What am I supposed to do? Where someone I know, when they are in bed, they're not using any electronics to make sure that your brain knows when you lie on that bed, okay, it's time to relax and sleep. How do you think we should be moving forward in creating those boundaries where everything just doesn't become this one place, and it's a place to do it all?
That's a really good question. I think the art of creating successful spaces in the future is going to need to be riding that balance of, let's say, there might be a convergence of features in a space. A space might have residential features, office features, retail features, hospitality features. I think you can have that and still separate functionality inside a space. And you gave a perfect example. And I think we used to say at Delos, at my old company, you should do nothing in your bedroom but sleep, read, and have sex. That's what your brain needs to only think of, those things when you go in your bed. If you're working in your bedroom, that's a bad thing. And I say that to people now. We're all working from home. Create a little space in your apartment. I mean, I'm in New York City. I have a small apartment. Create a space in your apartment, if you have a house, where that is your work area, because as soon as you enter into that area, you're signaling to your brain, I'm in work mode. Whereas if you just sit there and do it on your sofa, where you also watch TV and read books and socialize, you're not going to be as productive. So, but your question is a good one of, it's riding that balance of converging features, but still, I think, separating the uses inside each space.
It's quite interesting how technology is being integrated in our lives, and like almost like every second of our lives, where I think most of us wake up and check our phones.
Yeah.
And then we kind of go into reading news and make missed messages, etc. How do you think we're able to also make sure that technology within our homes, within our spaces, is providing value as opposed to taking our attention away? Yeah. I know it's a big question and it's hard, but again, it goes back to creating boundaries and creating structure, because these technologies are built to keep us addicted to them, especially like social media and our phones. How do we become more mindful in creating those boundaries? And like, for me, for example, I think I should just leave my phone in the kitchen before going to sleep. So when I wake up, I'm able to just like actually like wake up and be mindful, think about how I feel, and create, set my mind for what is to come today, as opposed to, get sidetracked by 20 new things that just happened in the last 1 hour or, overnight.
I remember we talked yesterday about, if you don't know what the product is a company's selling, you're the product, and that's what it is with a lot of technology companies that our attention is their product and our information. I do what you suggested. I leave my phone in the living room when I go to bed every night. I never take my phone in my bedroom. That's a just hard rule of mine. I also don't have children that I'm worried about calling me in the middle of the night and I need my phone next to my bed. If you're parents and you're worried about that, I can understand that. But I think if you can not do that, leave your phone in the other room. I keep mine on airplane mode too. I turn it on airplane mode an hour before I go to bed, and I don't take it off airplane mode for probably an hour, hour and a half after waking up. And, do have your morning routine where you're not seeing news or text or calls or emails. And that, I think, what you were driving at is how do you make technology work for you and not, the other way around. I think it's going to become more difficult though, as making this about spaces, the future spaces are going to know and help know so much about our bodies and our minds. And I'll give you an example. Assuming we all have more wearable technology in 5 or 10 years, and I don't just mean like a sleep device, but like devices that constantly know our heart rate, our stress levels, body temperature, things like that. And those devices can also know what time of day you are mentally the sharpest. A lot of people, it's like 11, 12 o'clock in the morning. Other people, it's 5 or 6 o'clock at night. Well, imagine if you and Balor and I want to have a meeting and we say to the system at work, we want to have a meeting and we want it to be a creative meeting. We need to solve something. We need creativity. The technology in the office can figure out what the ideal time is for the three of us to have that meeting, because it would know when are we most creative, and it would figure out that blended time. And it could even know, and this is more out in the future, how did the three of us sleep last night? What if two of us didn't get that good of sleep? So maybe you should try and shift that meeting a little earlier in the morning. I mean, that is really advanced stuff, but like I'm telling y'all, the technology is here to make that happen right now.
So I assume that spaces will become also personalized to what we're feeling, where we're at in life.
Yeah.
With that said, speaking of working spaces or homes, how can we create experiences or build, sets that will bring value to, spiritual, mental, physical, using design, using lights, using decor. Any recommendations? What should I do in my apartment?
I never knew as much about Feng Shui until I started running the Open Center. And I had one of the masters in the United States come over to my apartment. It was a 4-hour session. Only 30 minutes of it was walking around my apartment. It was 3.5 hours of basically like a psychiatry session. Him really needing to understand. I mean, he asked so many questions about my parents and their relationship and my grandparents. And like, he really wanted to know me to understand what am I trying to do in the world and how do we create space around me that optimizes everything I'm trying to do, but also understands who I am. And then we went around and we made little tweaks in my apartment, and it was really powerful. It was not exactly what I thought it was. It was not just, oh, shift the bed here. Oh, have a red wall there. That was like my impression of it before. So I think, my past of being a traditional real estate person, then I spent a lot of time focusing on behavioral science and then being in wellness real estate and now running a center for personal growth and spiritual practice, blending all of them together. The theme of this talk is blending, clearly, like integration. The convergence of all of those things together makes the perfect space, because now I look at a space and I'm like, okay, how is this space good for like my spirit or my soul or my mood? I think about those softer things. And so, what can people do? You can have, there's a term called biophilia, which is the science of how the outdoors makes us happy. You can have, painting. If you don't have windows, you can even have paintings of outdoor scenes make us happier, make us less stressed. So it's plants, it can be artwork, it can be even patterns, wood floor patterns. The wood floor tells our brain wood, outside, healthy, nature. It's little things like that you can do. So I would say those are really easy little tweaks for everybody to make in their home. And I would say walk around your house. Everybody doesn't have to buy the lights that I buy, although they're not that pricey now. The prices have come down. But walk around your house and look, like, how can you infuse nature more in your home? And maybe what makes you happy? What can you introduce that like puts you in a good mood? And to your point earlier of puts you in the mind frame you want to be in when you're in that space. If you want to be more creative in the kitchen and you feel like you're a boring cook, put things around your kitchen that actually inspire you to be creative.
So injecting nature in our surrounding. Hopefully people are able to get outside, get some sun, enjoy the nature, and then bring that back with them to the places that they spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
And have a lot of plants and warm light. Thank you, Ross. We're going to be moving on to our second speaker, M.B.A, a brilliant composer. And I've had the chance to attend one of the experiences that took place about a week ago in Central Park. It was a golden hour. There was a hill on which a piano was placed, sitting on candles around, and people were able to just come and have picnics, sit out in nature. And it's something that certainly needs to be experienced. So I hope that everyone who is tuning in right now is able to look into it and see what we're going to be talking about for themselves in person. M.B.A, glad to have you here. I wanted to say that the experience itself for me, just sitting there and being able to have the nature surround me, sky up above, trees all around, and being able to tune in to the music that you were playing live directly into our ears, put me into some sort of a trance where it was much easier to just go deep inside and be inspired by my surrounding to think about things, about life, about things that I'm working on. And as a writer, naturally, I went into, my script. I'd love to hear about, the experiences that you create for others within the spaces, of nature and tranquility. And what do you want the listeners of these experiences to feel, and what kind of journey you want to send them on when you have these?
Yeah, thank you, Ramazan, and thank you for attending last week. It was a really special event. And thanks for having me today. It's great to share some ideas with you all. I would say that, and by the way, I also want to mention to Ross, it's good to connect with you. I spent a lot of time at the Open Center as a young person when I was at NYU. Countless classes, programs downtown. So it's great to connect with you and the Open Center again after all these years. In terms of spaces, I certainly do equate, as we've been talking about, nature and spaces. And when I think about bringing my music to people and sharing a musical experience, immediately I think about how can I incorporate nature in the experience. And that's not really necessarily the first intuitive thing a musician might think about, because most music is probably experienced in a concert hall, in a theater, and live music especially, and so, or in some stadium if it's a rock band or something like that. But to think about it synonymous with nature, that really is what it is for me, because nature is the greatest inspiration for me for how I compose and create my music. I also find nature to be the most healing, place that we can be if we're looking for that. So if the music aspires to really move people, connect people more with their emotional state, with their spiritual state, which is my aspiration, I'm really looking to transport people. I'm looking to invoke a bit of wonder in our lives that are so busy that we tend to forget about even seeking wonder or looking for it. And it turns out you can find it not halfway around the world, although you certainly could, but you can find it in the everyday surroundings that we have if you just know what to look for and know what to listen for. So that's really the deliberate space I'm trying to curate, really, with the ingredients that include nature, music, and community as the core elements to it.
After the experience, a lot of people who came to say something, you've opened the floor for people to share their feelings, their experiences, and right there and then I realized what mind travel really means, where you give yourself an opportunity to get lost. And a lot of people kept saying like, oh, they're able to kind of find themselves and their spirituality and be able to just be with themselves. And you said that, sometimes, in order to find yourself, you have to get lost first. And when you're just sitting there listening to music, uninterrupted music for over an hour, I had the experience of just traveling, going on a journey within our mind, which is expansive as the universe. I wanted to ask you about as people are imagining their own thoughts and kind of traveling themselves, you're playing for an hour straight, and the pattern of music kind of goes like emotional and kind of calm, and then it picks up. It's quite intense and powerful. And I was wondering, how do you feel? What kind of mind travel you're going through as you come up with this on the spot? Because this is not composed beforehand. It's not the story that you want to tell, that you kind of come up with before. You kind of get into your seat. You take a deep breath, and you're like, let's go. And then you start playing. And that was just magical. It's like, I just wanted to kind of know what is happening within your own head as you experience this, and allowing others to experience this mind travel.
Yeah, it's a good question, because it's quite different when I play versus when I just listen to, say, a recording of it. So, for me, the experience is really, how do I get out of my own way as quickly as possible? Mm-hmm. That's the first intention. And I have a specific way of doing that I've developed as a practice over so many years. I've been doing this for, over 20 years. So it really is about, how do I get out of my own way, which is a musical notion here, but it's also a metaphor for life, right? I really am very present to that in my everyday life, of like, how do I get out of my own way to actually achieve what I want? Because it's never an externality. It's never really an external circumstance that is in our way of our dreams. And we sometimes think it is. We very much think it is. We very much externalize causation. And if you really look under the hood of what's happening, it's usually an internal state, an internal situation that is, if it's unconscious or unknown or hidden to us, we then think of it as an external force. This is actually a Jungian notion. Carl Jung talked about this idea. So really, what living life every day becomes about is surfacing parts of ourselves that are just unknown to us, getting to know ourselves in that sense. And music, turns out, is a phenomenal way to do it. Why? Because music is the language of emotion. And yes, can we intellectually get to know ourselves? On some level, sure. Of course, we use our brains in intellectual capacities in terms of mathematics, philosophy, computers, science. Of course, it's an incredibly powerful tool. But to know yourself, you must know not just the rational side of yourself, but also the emotional side of yourself. How are you in various emotional states, right? How do you occur during anger, during jealousy, during frustration, during sadness, during depression, during joy? I mean, how do you operate? What's your state of being in the world? And it takes tremendous and deliberate choice to go to that internal space, right? We should not only talk about external spaces, but internal spaces. I think of them as landscapes, right? The external landscape, the internal landscape. And often our dissonance in our living of life occurs because there's some kind of dissonance or rift between our internal state and the external occurrence of the world. And the more we can reconcile the two, then the more integrated we become. And it turns out the more fulfilled and happy we can be. It's always the internal, which is at odds with the external, right? Like, I want to, feel this, but the world is occurring to me as that. Well, it turns out that the world's only occurring to you as that. It's because of what's going on inside you. And once that connection is made for folks, a whole new way of living opens up. But that's not obvious. It's really not obvious, certainly to most people. And it takes work. It takes shining the light on that possibility.
Go ahead, Ross.
That was beautiful. I just want to say that was amazing, man.
Thank you.
We do perceive the world through our minds. So, there's a saying, like, we're not the center of the universe, but we kind of are, because everything goes into our minds and then it makes us feel. And I believe it's true that we have a lot of answers to our own questions. It's just a matter of going deep and being able to connect with ourselves and answer those questions. And I think that's what psychologists and therapists get us to do when we talk about our whether it's trauma or challenges. A lot of times they give us the floor to talk things out, go into our subconscious, or understand what is happening within the subconscious, and answer our own questions that we have to ask, or we do ask. And with music, I feel like it goes straight to our subconscious, into our emotions, and it could be a vehicle and a tool to unlock some of these things much quicker than you logically trying to figure out, okay, what is happening? Why am I doing what I'm doing? So with music, speaking of it being so impactful, unconscious and subconscious level, like Ross was talking about patterns, wood patterns and how it calms us down, music is also patterns. Certain pieces of music arouse, our feelings. Some make us sad, some inspire us. And, you have been influenced by many other musicians, like Philip Glass and Bach, and they all have different styles. How have you come up with your own style within this, your own journey? And how do you conceive this piece of music on the spot to, kind of make other people feel?
I think that all composers attempt to translate either the external landscape, that nature, into music. And there's a billion examples of that, right? From the Pastoral Symphony to, the Cosmic Symphonies. I mean, there's just a million examples of that, to attempting to interpret their inner state, right? What the composer's emotionally going through in life, right? We think of Beethoven, who was brilliant at actually representing both of those, right? Incredible force and passion of the internal emotional state, his tortured life, and then his ability to manifest nature through music. He had a beautiful quote, which was, "Music can be the bridge between the sensual and the spiritual." And by the sensual, he meant by what we perceive with our senses, right? And I really feel that. I really get that strongly as a musician. So there's times where I sit at the ocean and I'm like, how do I interpret the waves that are just putting me into this beautiful trance? Again, patterns that are predictably unpredictable, right? And then there's times when I'm like, I'm going through something, I want to just get it out of me and feel it out of me. You know, you talked about, you know, we can logically think through stuff, but we think in language by definition, right? And so language, spoken language, is a linear process. We can only think one word at a time, one sentence at a time, one idea at a time. And we can certainly jump around, but we do so in a linear fashion. That is the nature of a spoken language. Even when we're in conversation, like right now, it's a linear process. I'm speaking, I then pause, you speak, right? If we both are all, and if everyone here starts talking at the same time, it's going to be just confusion and noise. Music is totally different as a language, right? So music also operates in a linear capacity, right? You have a beautiful melody on a flute, on a violin, and it's one note in front of the other, like one word in front of the other. But then something else is possible. There's a multidimensionality to music where you could be playing one melody, Ross plays a second melody, Valor plays a third melody, I play a fourth melody. We have polyphony, right? We have multiple voices, we have harmony. And they express something larger than any of the individual lines. That's the magic of music. Regardless of how it works, why it works, what's going on in the brain, who cares for right now? It works, period. And it allows us to then express emotions that are also multidimensional. There is no emotion that is linear. There is no emotion that we have that is discrete. Emotions are like icebergs, all of them, really, at the end of the day. And we try to call them something, but those emotions don't know they're called that. It's just a tangle of energy, okay? And we're just feeling our way through it somatically, mentally, and it's about untangling it. If you want to be aware, if you want to be awake in life, if you want to be conscious, it's not just like, I'm feeling this, vibrating, and then you just go back to what you were doing. No, you want to reflect on it. You want to observe it, be the witness to your state, untangle it. Look at that anger that's morphing into maybe aggression right now. Oh, let me bring some compassion to that and pull it back a little bit and open up my heart a little. And I start to work with it. And the anger is happening because of some other emotion that's going on, right? I feel some injustice here. And so there's all kinds of things going on. Music, because it's multidimensional, can untangle a multidimensional phenomena like emotion. That's what's going on.
I also wanted to add the fact that, you know, the way you play is uninterrupted, you know, and it feels like you create a wave, and then we're able to surf on that wave, and within that, slide as we kind of go up and down, we're able to just stay in it as opposed to get pulled out. We know that music is extremely impactful, you know, rock and roll and, you know, all that good stuff. It changed people's hearts and minds. What I love about your experience is that, you know, you take people on a journey where they're able to get lost and then find themselves on that journey. And sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's actually uncomfortable, but it's something that we ought to experience as human beings, and you're the one who's taking us on that journey. So thank you for that. I wanted to move due to time constraints, I wanted to tell our audiences that we actually have a very exciting surprise for you guys. Murray, specifically for this session, recorded a session. He couldn't play it live because of traveling constraints, and as we can tell, he is somewhere very nice and having a great time, hopefully, getting some sun in nature. So we wanted to play that right now for you, and I hope that you're able to just sit back, relax, let the music create the wave, and let yourself ride it. And let's see where we end up at the end of this 10-minute journey. Welcome back. Hopefully, our technical difficulties did not stand in the way of you and your journey. Thank you, Murray, for that. I worked with a lot of composers and really appreciate your talents, and it's quite amazing. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving to our section of Q&As. We'd love to hear questions for great, amazing speakers.
Ramazan, one thing I could just offer is it might be a good idea if you'd like, you can send the link
For sure.
to that track to everybody so they can experience it locally on their own computer with their own headphones and without any delay in terms of the connection bandwidth issues. So and then just really go on the journey deeply. But at least they got a taste of it, and I think that'll be nice for people to do.
Certainly, yeah. We would love to do that. And one thing I was gonna say is, one thing that was, I closed my eyes, but I imagined the space around me in nature. So I hope that people are able to take that piece and enjoy it on their own time in their own beautiful space that they choose. Any questions, thoughts, feelings? But Laura, you wanted to say something?
Yes. I was like waiting for someone to type here. Since we have a little bit of time, like I'm just curious about, like, dying to ask about this, and really question to you, right? So your music is like very much inspired by like theoretical physics, classical music, and you also had the visual arts and wisdom traditions. And I had a chance to experience one of your events, and you also had this Japanese ancient wisdom towards like walking meditation, something like that, if I'm not wrong. So how those things come together and builds this amazing music, and then what make, like, how do you combine all those incredible things, number one? And then also at the same time, Ramazan also mentioned in terms of like patterns, like repeated patterns, like is that, like, if we even like look at the crystals, it's like also repeated patterns. Is that repeated patterns helps us to like have some calmness, or how does it work to our mind?
Yeah, thank you, Bola. Well, I'll start with the pattern one. It's very interesting. The brain loves patterns. We're always attracted to patterns in nature, and patterns are very attractive. At the same time, we also like novelty. We're also attracted to new things that pull our attention and call our attention. So ultimately, when trying to kind of hold someone in a space, hold someone's attention, we have to ride that perfect balance of giving them an environment that has a stability and a comfort through the pattern, but also is organically changing enough so that it has a novelty to it, but not too much so that it's too jarring and would actually create anxiety. So it's this, I really attempt that kind of balance between a pattern that lulls us, that trances us, because the brain does really enjoy that. There's no coincidence why repeating patterns in a modern context at the piano today are not any different than repeated, say, chants of Tibetan monks from 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. So it's really a very similar phenomenon in the brain, I think. In terms of the first part of your question of different influences, where I start from in terms of my own journey, my own exploration, is trying to gain deeper understanding, trying to gain a deeper understanding of the universe, the cosmos, why I'm here, what is going on in terms of reality, what is reality, what's going on within me, and where does that all meet? And so if you look at, well, for me, it was like, well, what's the most efficient path to achieving some glimpse into reality and what's going on? Well, on the one hand, just looking at, say, mystical or wisdom traditions, that certainly gives you deep insight, but I felt like it was also missing some other component, which to me was fulfilled with theoretical physics. And theoretical physics is a magnificent language and a path to go down, but it's also missing something which I think there's other traditions that kind of fill in those gaps. And so bringing the two together really is a powerful combination. If you look at the visuals we just that accompanied the music, I created all those very deliberately so that you're looking at the cosmos, and then through the vibration of the music, if you notice what was happening, we start to see all kinds of distortions and lensing going on in the cosmos, in the constellations. And that's really meant to evoke this idea of gravitational waves, these undulating movements in space and time. Also this idea that vibration is ultimately controlling everything. It's the nature of everything. So again, bringing together physics, the cosmos, with spiritual teachings as well, right? This idea that we are vibration and that our own vibrations create ripple effects into and throughout the cosmos, that we create the universe as the universe creates us. So I really do try to embody that and then reflect that out in both the visual and visual art as well as the music.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Murray. We have a question from Martin for Ross. How close are we to the time when designers and manufacturers of the items which fill our spaces, kitchens, bedrooms, etc., are made in a healthy manner? And that's the conversation that we had yesterday, Ross.
Yeah. I would say we're some of the way there. Like you probably for the last, I don't know how many years, 5 to 10 years, you can find out if the bed frame you're buying is made from materials that are going to poison the air. Sometimes it's easier to find that information than others. Mattresses are really easy to find right now. Companies that make mattresses that don't off gas always are promoting that information right now. Light, paints, if you go to any Sherman-Williams or whatever the brands are, low VOC paints is an easy thing to ask for. They cost a little bit more money, not that much more money. I mean, for example, when I moved into this apartment, I asked the landlord, I said, I need you to make sure your guy uses low VOC paints, and they did. And he didn't charge me any more money for that. So I would say those things are fairly easy. Furniture manufacturers should have the information available. In terms of, the plastics industry, I know all the water bottles are showing things like that don't have, the PBAs, I think, in them, So I would say varying degrees, Martin, depending on the product we're talking about. But it's only going in one direction because everybody's going to want to know. And I think the next thing is not just how healthy, but how recyclable are all the materials. Every ingredient that went into making something, I think manufacturers are going to have to show that it's from some type of sustainable network. And I mean, I have a friend that has a company putting little chips into clothing items so that they can track how well the garments are recycled down the road, and they can prove that they're not being thrown away. So I would say the sort of circular economy, if you will, like the health aspect will be in there with the recycling aspect, because we're part of the earth. Like it's all equally important.
Thank you, Ross. I guess we're gonna have to do our homework before buying stuff and making sure that it's sustainable. And
ask questions, ask lots of questions.
Exactly. Well, with that said, I'd like to wrap the session up and thank our speakers. Ross, thank you. Well, I think we should be very mindful of what kind of spaces we're building around us and how we want them to affect us in a positive way. And also not just us, but everyone who's going to be coming, to those spaces. Murray, thank you so much for your brilliant and thought-provoking, but also emotional journey that you sent us on. And I'd love to hear more. And I highly recommend to all of our guests to attend one of these experiences in person. It's definitely worth it.
Murray, you gotta come do something with us, brother.
Let's make it happen. I would love to.
We gotta connect after this. We gotta do something together. And I probably should have said, I didn't even say about our website. We're opencenter.org. We are a nonprofit. So check out opencenter.org. We have so many classes and we have amazing people like Murray that come present on our platform. And we will have Murray soon.
Murray, where can we
great.
find, Murray, where can we find more information about Mindtravel? Mindtravel.org?
Yeah, mindtravel.com. And everything's there, the schedule and some downloads and all kinds of fun stuff.
Thank you. And thank you for our guests for tuning in. And I would like to give the last words to the President Gerard.
Oh, thank you very much, Ramazan. I want to thank you, first of all, for doing a great job for moderating. You're a natural at it. You did a great job. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your talent. Thank you for your infectious smile. And I think we enjoyed it. Murray, I have to tell you, it was not what I expected. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all. I was really very fascinated with your music. And I really do think I understand what you talk about now when you say mind travel. I definitely want to be exposed to more of it. Thank you so much for exposing us to your talent tonight. And we will follow up. I know I will, mindtravel.com. Ross, I'm going to propose perhaps you and I might want to collaborate in the future on doing a workshop, live workshop. I didn't happen willingly, but I'm an expert on toxic mold, and I've been involved in a number of toxic mold litigations. And you mentioned something which rang a bell with me when you said that quite a bit of the pollution we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis is indoor pollution. That there's more of it inside of our homes than there is outside of our homes, and we don't realize that. And I've actually seen people get very sick from the pollution inside their own homes, and I've actually had some people who've died from it. So I think that Ross, you and I might want to collaborate in the not too distant future in doing a live workshop. I think this is something we can do with Rotary. Valor, as always, you do a wonderful job in bringing talent from around the world together for all of our members to enjoy. I'll remind everyone that this was recorded because we have a number of sister clubs around the world, from Mexico all the way through Taiwan, and they will have access to this on YouTube, and they will be able to see it at another time. And I know that they do. Thank all of you. I thank all of you for enriching our lives tonight. I appreciate it very much. I know Rotary Club of New York appreciates it, and we look forward to a time when we can all be together, which is not going to be not that long. I think it's going to be quicker than we think. Hopefully, if things keep going the way they are in New York. Thank you, everyone, for being with us tonight. Really enjoyed it. Really did enjoy it very much. Andreas? Andreas, are you still with us?
You mute.
I am with you, and with that, we conclude the session.
Valor, is there something you want to add before we left? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Valor.